Hello everybody, welcome back to my gaming review. Today, I want to talk about, well, this is my second video today, but I want to talk about the retro gaming stuff versus modern gaming. So for today's video, we got the Atari 2600 representing the retro style gaming that has like the original cables and all that stuff back in the 80s and 70s. Then we got the PlayStation 4, which will represent the more modern systems. HDMI movies can be played on it. It's more futuristic than this, obviously. I don't got a PS5 to represent the modern gaming stuff, but anyway, modern versus retro. What is better to me, in my opinion, and what is better to you? Now, this video is just looking at systems from now to like back then. Like you got the Atari, you got the Sega, you got Nintendo, and you got PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Xbox Series, PS5, that kind of stuff. So, modern gaming versus retro gaming. Now, there's massive differences between modern and retro because retro is like 8-bit graphics and 16-bit graphics. And some games are like 3D, but the graphics are not really like too amazing to today's standards. And then you got PS4 that has like these amazing graphics. Some games look absolutely amazing and realistic and beautiful, and graphics have changed quite a lot since these times and all that. But does that mean that modern games are just absolutely 100% better than retro games? Well, not exactly. Retro games are a lot more like simple based, and there's a lot of fantastic retro games like Pac-Man, Mrs. Pac-Man. There's Mario Bros. There's Duck Hunt. There's a lot of fantastic retro games, like even like Tetris that people still play nowadays, Pokemon, all that. Um, there's been a lot of fantastic retro games on Atari, on Nintendo, on Sega Genesis, the Sega Master System, and stuff like that, and Nintendo Game Boy that I showed in my last video. So even though we do have like modern devices and all that, even though PS4, PS5, and Xbox has these fantastic, graphically amazing games, what it comes down to for me is the fun. What game can make me addictive to it, get addicted to the game. And I find myself getting more addicted to like old school games, such as I can play Doom 2, I can play Doom 1, I can play Pac-Man, I can play Mrs. Pac-Man, I could play on my Game Boy, and I could just keep on playing and playing because they're very addictive game systems. And I find that with retro gaming, games are a lot more addictive, they're a lot more fun to me than the modern games. Now that's not saying that modern games suck. It's just saying that I've played Call of Duty, I've played the exclusive games, I've played all these fantastic games on the PlayStation 4. But sometimes when I play my PS4, I get really bored. I'm like, okay, I've played this game, I've played that game, I've played this game, I'll buy a new game. I, play a new game and I get bored of it within like a few weeks or like a month after I beat the game. But when I go to these systems like the Atari, Nintendo, Sega, and Game Boy and all that, I find that retro systems are a lot more fun. Especially consoles like the Nintendo 64 and stuff, because for some reason when it comes to retro games and old school gaming, there's just like so many games you can play. There's a variety of games, and a lot of the games are fantastic. Sonic, Mario, the old Mega Man games, Pokemon. And I don't really know why it is. I think people back then, they just kind of put more towards like the fun factor of video games, because it seems like retro gaming is just more fun. I mean, if you look at like the arcades, the arcade cabinets and all that, those are fun. You got like games like Donkey Kong, where you're trying to beat Donkey Kong and save the princess. But those games, even though those games are very simple based, they're just super duper fun. So to me, when it comes to modern gaming, like the PS4 here versus retro gaming like the Atari here, honestly, sometimes I prefer this over this. I still use this for games. I still use a PS4 like every single day. But I also still use my PlayStation 2. I still use a Atari. I still use a Game Boy because these retro systems give me a different feel, a different experience, you know. I know what I'm getting out of a PS4. I know the experience already because I've owned a PlayStation 4. I know that PS5 and PS4 have better graphics. I know that they're realistic and it's, you know, in gaming nowadays we're trying to like push for people in video games to look like me. You know, they're pushing for those real graphics. But you know what? I don't care about graphics. I really don't. I mean, you have systems like this that this is actually an 8-bit system, but the games don't look as fantastic as other games, especially other retro systems. But there's some fantastic Atari games that you can play on the 2600. Those amazing games. You might play as a little stick man around, and you have a blast. You play for like hours. You go to this system, and maybe you'll play like, you know, the new Call of Duty game, or you'll play Fortnite. But it's like, it's just such a different experience. But I find myself going, okay, this experience is for some reason more fun to me. Nintendo 64, Atari, Game Boy. These game systems are sometimes just way more fun than the modern systems, you know? And in my opinion, modern gaming has gotten very boring. I'm not really looking forward to a PS5, if I'm being completely honest. I'm not really looking forward to the brand new games on PlayStation because I've played everything already, you know. I have a huge PlayStation 4 library. I have 3 of these systems, and it's like, you know, even though I have this huge PlayStation 4 library, and even though I have all the games I want on my PS4, it's still never going to give me the same experience as one of these old retro systems, or playing an arcade game, you know. So, but anyway, excuse me. Okay, so anyway, as I made a quick video on, you know, modern gaming versus retro gaming, my views on it. But if I'm being completely honest with everybody, I find myself really loving retro game system and retro games like Pac-Man, and you know, this has a lot of simple games. The other thing about modern gaming versus retro gaming is that when you get a PlayStation 4, when you get a PlayStation 5, or if you get some of these exclusive games, you have to put a lot of time into these games. But back in these days, you just turn the system on, you play a little bit of the game, and you go to walk, or you go do something with your family. This system, you gotta really like put hours into a lot of exclusive games. You gotta really play those, like, you know, some games are like 20-hour games, you know. Or this system and Nintendo and Game Boy, you turn the system on, it's simple, and you play a little bit, and then you go to walk, or you go hang out with someone, you know. You know, it seems like nowadays it's like you have to put a lot more time into the game that you're playing, which is not a bad thing if you're like a hardcore gamer, but not everybody who's a gamer has the time to put, you know, 10 hours or 20 hours into a game, especially nowadays. So game systems like this really do come in handy, honestly. Even today they come in handy because you know, tone this on for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, have fun, and leave for work. But this system, when you get into a game, it's like, you know, if you play like Uncharted, or you know, some of the new games that have a whole bunch of like missions you gotta do, you gotta put just a lot more into it. So, you know, this is a lot like PlayStation 5 and 4 are a lot more for like hardcore gaming, especially Xbox 2 is also for like more of a hardcore kind of thing. There is simple games on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 and Xbox, but it's becoming less and less, right? But with the retro games like Atari 2600, I could literally just turn this on and I'm into the game. I can go to my Nintendo Game Boy, turn the system on, I'm at the game. I can get my Nintendo Entertainment System, my Nintendo 64, my PlayStation 2, and I'm already in a game, right? But anyway, that's just my views and my opinion on it. But retro gaming is, pretty awesome. And even though the graphics are not as amazing as PlayStation 5 and 4 and Xbox, even though old school gaming does not have what these new systems have, there's still like fantastic and great game systems. And I wouldn't say that this sucks because it's old, or this sucks because the games don't look good, or the graphics are just terrible, right? But it doesn't suck. It's just very different from what people are used to nowadays. But I think when people play this and they play something like this, obviously there's a massive difference. But you could actually have a lot of fun with the system. Some people might say this sucks because the games look like garbage, and you play as a little stick man or a squirrel running around a screen, while you can play as a human on a PlayStation 4. You can play a video game where you're just this character, and there's this whole story, which is amazing. It's amazing what gaming has come to, but retro gaming has just a more simple feel. It's more simplistic. It's more addicting. There's a lot more games for these systems. There's a lot of unique games on the system that you can't find on PlayStation 5 or 4. Now there is retro games for these systems, but again, it's not the same as actually experiencing putting the game in and powering on the system and having to use the old hookups and the old control and all that. It's very different when you play games on PS4. But anyway, at the end of the video, this was just kind of like modern gaming versus retro gaming, my views and opinion on it. It's not really like one is better than the other. It's all about what systems you prefer. But if you're someone who's like a casual gamer, or you like the simplistic games and stuff, retro gaming is perfect for that. I mean, there is some hardcore retro games, especially on PlayStation 2. I'm trying to speak too fast, but again, a lot of these games for the old retro gaming are just simplistic, and you just kind of play until you're done. PS4, you gotta play for hours and hours, which, even though the games are fantastic, a lot of people don't have time for that, which is very sad, but that's the truth. But anyway, what do you think is better? Do you prefer the modern gaming and the modern feel of PS4, PS5, Xbox, and all that, or do you prefer retro experience with the old school controls, the old school switches, and do you prefer old school gaming, or do you prefer modern gaming? And this is not just PlayStation 4 and Atari. It could be any retro system. It could be any modern game system. But just tell me in the comments below, though, what do you prefer? Do you prefer playing a Nintendo 64 over anything else? Do you prefer playing a PS2? Do you prefer playing even a PS3 or PS1, a Game Boy? Do you prefer the Nintendo Entertainment System? Do you prefer the Super Nintendo? What retro systems do you prefer? And then, do you prefer PS4? Do you prefer PS5? Do you prefer the Xboxes? Just tell me what you prefer. But anyway, this is my gaming review. Peace out, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the video, and bye.